All right. So we're looking at day 2 today. This is going to be chapter 3. We're going to be covering the psychosocial considerations of aging. So we're going to be looking a lot at that personality stuff that we talked about. Similarly, in our youth mod, for those of you who have been through that course, we're going to talk about some of the similar concepts here, like emotional well-being and self-perception, stuff like that. But obviously the emphasis of these things is a little bit different, right? Like seniors, their priorities are definitely different than how we train our youths. Come on, stop. Hush, phone. So we are going to be looking at sort of all the things that we need to consider and talk about like the positive benefits of exercise that it will have, like psychologically, on our clients. Like, the benefits of exercise are not always just physical. Sometimes they are also psychological and emotional. And our introduction today, we got to remember that the body and the mind are not separate. That's something we're definitely going to put some emphasis on. Understand how our physical well-being and psychological well-being and emotional well-being and social well-being are all very linked together. And so this is actually one of the most common reasons that older individuals will actually seek out personal training or exercise in general. They actually are interested in joining the gym because it is like there is a social aspect to it, right? And then obviously they're going to feel better physically and emotionally and everything. So today we're going to be looking at sort of all the things that influence what we call quality of life, how we can effectively motivate our older individuals, and then what steps we can take to help our clients, our senior clients, achieve more, overall. So looking at like the idea of quality of life first, right? So the idea when we talk about quality of life, which is really the big thing that we're trying to improve, like when you think about like what a personal trainer is like hired for, right? You could say like, well, they're hired to make me, I hire them to make me better at squats, or I hire them to help me lose weight, or I hire them to help me build muscle, right? All of those things, right? The reason someone is seeking out a personal trainer is because they're trying to improve their quality of life. They're trying to make themselves happier through investing in their health and wellness, right? So if we know that, that's the big priority, like that's what we want to kind of spend our time on, and always come back to whenever we're talking about our clients. Like if we're talking and like we teach our clients like, hey, based on your fitness assessment, I can tell, we've got really tight adductor muscles, right? And they're like, well, I'm here to lose weight, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, but if we improve those adductor muscles mobility, if we can improve your range of motion and make you more flexible, it's going to make moving a lot easier, which is going to help, in your overall weight loss journey. You're going to move better, you're going to feel better, you're going to have a greater capacity for exercise. So explaining that to your client can have a positive effect because it brings the conversation back to, hey, we're picking this stretch, or we're picking this type of exercise, or we're doing this activity. We're doing this because it's going to enhance like everything that you are hiring me for. This is going to be, we're prioritizing like your wants and likes and dislikes and stuff. We're not just doing this for the sake of like doing it. We're not filling a session time, which is what you see a lot of trainers do. They'll, it drives me absolutely insane when I walk into a gym and I see there's like a trainer that, has like I'm using a very personal example because this is what my boss used to do. But you just set up like a step or whatever with like a little station and grab like 3 or 4 pairs of dumbbells that you just kind of keep near you all freaking day. Like that, number one, like the weight is obviously not specific. There's only like, you got 3 options for dumbbells. And then like, every person that's going through is getting the exact same routine every single time. That's not exactly what we're looking for in personal training, right? Like this is a catered, very customized experience. So again, the big thing that we need to kind of come back to is that we got to remember that like, our overall job, the reason people come to us is because they are trying to improve their overall, quality of life, right? So there's a lot of different things that can affect your quality of life. One of those things is going to be self-perception, right? So self-perception, it's exactly like it sounds. It's how an individual perceives themselves, right? And this obviously has a very, very large impact on your quality of life. If you don't see yourself as effective, or if you don't see yourself as valuable, both of those things are going to lead to a diminished overall quality of life, or a diminished emotional well-being is sort of sometimes one of the things we look at as well, right? So if you, those are really the two main aspects, right? That's your, we're going to talk about this down here in just a minute, but that's your self-efficacy and your self-esteem, right? Both of those things are sort of like what make up how you sort of perceive yourself. Do you see yourself as having high efficacy? Do you see yourself as, having the ability to accomplish the things that you set out to accomplish? Do you see yourself as valuable? Like, do you see yourself like as, you know, your opinions matter, you deserve to have what you want, that's your self-esteem. Both of those things kind of come together, and sometimes you'll definitely have like a client, you'll recognize like low self-esteem in that client. They'll say, oh well, like I don't, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to, they can do it, like things like that, like someone who doesn't really stand up for themselves. They don't see themselves as valuable enough to deserve whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, right? And you'll see that in older adults sometimes, especially like the ones that are kind of putting a lot of emphasis externally, right? I sometimes you see this. It's not necessarily like a low self-esteem issue necessarily, but you'll see this sometimes, especially in parents. Sometimes they put a big priority on like their kids, and that's great. Like if that is enhancing their quality of life, awesome. But like I've known clients who, I had a client who was she was a chef. She was like a really great chef, and Southern, showed affection through food and stuff, right? And her family always wanted to eat like, specific stuff. They would ask her to whip it up, and she would, which is awesome because like that's a fun like hobby for someone to have, right? And she was incredible anyway. She did it professionally. And so like they were she was using her skills to provide for her family, and this is a fun thing for her. She absolutely enjoyed that, but the things that they would ask for were really unhealthy foods. And it was just one of those things where it's like, hey, like it's okay for you to like kind of maybe stand up for yourself and say like, hey, I'm on this weight loss journey, this is important to me, I want to feel better. You can still absolutely cook for your family, but like let's see if we can speak up and get them on board with maybe some healthier options, because every time she would sort of like default to trying to cook something a little bit healthier, it would kind of go the other way. They'd be like, oh no, I mean that's great, but let's have this greasy thing, or sugary thing or something like that. So that's a little bit of self esteem, right? The belief that like you're valuable and that your opinion matters, and and then self-efficacy, right? That's another big part of it. Like, do you see yourself as, if you set out to do something, do you accomplish it or not, right? Or do you set out to do something and you fail to accomplish it? Do you give up? How do you see yourself? That's your self-perception. So that's going to be a big deal, and one of the main things that we are going to try to improve in our clients. Now, another thing that we are also going to look at is just overall quality of life. And I forgot about this PowerPoint. I remember this actually. These PowerPoints go in a really, really, really weird order. The next, I'm going to be a little bit off the page here. The next thing we're going to look at is quality of life. And so quality of life is going to consist of four things, right? The four kind of main aspects that make up like a good quality of life, right? Part of that is going to be your emotional well-being. Part of it's going to be your physical well-being, psychological well-being, and social well-being, right? All of these things. We want to be solid emotionally, physically, psychologically, and socially. So when I say emotional well-being, I'm talking about the physical and psychosocial changes that we experience as we get older. We do experience like differences, like again, like your nervous system changes, right? And emotionally, like your priorities are also going to change. The things that are important, things that used to be important might get pushed to the side, and other things that are, that were less important at one point now suddenly become, big priorities. And so, as long as you are emotionally like coping with things like that and absorbing those in really healthy manners, that's what we're looking for, right? That's going to lead to an overall improved quality of life. If you are consistently stressed, right, that's going to diminish your overall quality of life. I tend to find like this is the one that I sometimes like struggle the most with. I tend to be a pretty stressed person. I get it from my mom. My mom is an Olympian when it comes to stressing. World-class athlete in terms of figuring out how to stress out about stuff. The joke I always use on my mom is always, because she's like, no, it's not that bad, and she knows. But the joke I always use is like, Mom, you'll be worried that we left the gas on when your stove is electric. She's great at it. And so like that can diminish your overall quality of life if you're consistently creating like stress hormones that are, you can kind of wreaking havoc like physically and socially. It can have really big changes. Actually, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is stress can literally have physical changes on your brain. So how stress changes your brain. So this is actually kind of an interesting video here. So this is going to talk about what kind of effects like overall stress has physically on your body, right? So actually, we'll watch. This is a short little video, so let's dive in and watch a little video real quick.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home.
I just realized I need to turn it's not set by default. Audio. How did I do this? Sorry, 1 second. It's on the screen share settings, right? Share sound. There we go.
Can affect brain size, its structure, and early begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus-pituitary-adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
Kind of fun, right? When we look at the idea of like, improving our emotional well-being, we know that, regular exercise is going to have a very, very positive effect. It's one of the biggest ways to sort of build up, psychological antibodies, right? And then the same thing is true of like meditation. Meditation is an incredible way, to learn how to fight stress. And that can be, whatever it looks like for you. For me, meditation, I'm not so good at like, sitting and simply meditating, but if you go for a walk, be alone with your thoughts and, build some awareness in your life, like that's a very, very, very healthy thing. So, that's going to be a big affector of quality of life. There's also the physical side of it, obviously, right? We know that if you are physically feeling, like cardiorespiratory wise, that you cannot accomplish a certain task, that's going to be, a negative effector in quality of life. We know that like musculoskeletally, if you are experiencing like joint pain or, bone aches and things like that, that's going to go away, and improve your overall quality of life because, obviously it's just not, doesn't feel good to be in pain all day long, it's a real pain in the rear. Psychologically, how an individual thinks. So this is a little bit different than our emotional well-being, but this psychological well-being is slightly different, in that it is actually about like what types of inner dialogues your client has, like what types of thoughts they are having. So psychological, like I said, my mom, she's kind of a world-class stressor. And unfortunately, part of the what kind of comes along with that is that she is also, she can be a little pessimistic sometimes. Love her to death, but she can be a little bit of, not like a downer. She's definitely not a downer. Like, she brightens up a room for sure. But she will often like think the worst. Like, it's like, oh, this happened, obviously that, that's because this person's trying to like get one over on someone else. It's like, well, maybe not. Like, she can sometimes be a little pessimistic, and so learning how to like change those inner dialogues you know, or like, oh, this is going to happen, and then, you know, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. We call that catastrophizing. If you catastrophize, right, it's where you're literally making mountains out of molehills, you know. Maybe you're worried that, um, you know, this is one of the biggest reasons why we stress out and freak out when we're on the road, right? It's like you're driving and you're like, I'm going to be late. And if I'm late, I'm going to get fired. And if I get fired, I'm not going to have a job. And if I have a job, I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be homeless. I'm not going to have a family. And if I don't have a family, you know, like your brain just starts like kind of adding everything together, right? That's a little bit about like psychological well-being. So helping individuals, like helping our clients, like learn how to process that and sort of speak a little bit more positively. Now, how do a lot of times, like when we hear this, some people are like, well, how does a personal trainer, you know, how does a fitness expert have any impact on someone's psychological well-being? How do, like, what's the connection here, right? This can sometimes be a little surprising, but what it is like, you got to remember that like when someone is catastrophizing or when they have like negative inner dialogues, they have this belief that they are going to fail, or they, you know, they're like, oh, well, I'm always bad at stuff, right? You know, I don't often succeed. I'm not good. I'm not valuable, right? Like you hear like these kind of intense inner dialogues sometimes. Um, but when you exercise, it's like, hey, we're going to do, you know, 20 body weight squats right now, right? And so then all of a sudden your client performs 20 body weight squats and they do them well. And you're like, hey, you did great. You succeeded. You accomplished a task. Our brains love accomplishing tasks, right? Go back to our exercise psychology class, which I know a lot of you guys have been through. Bay, that's going to be in your final mod. But when we talk about like our exercise psychology class, one of the things that we talk about is the idea of like a habit loop. And habit loops, if you look at them, are where basically you'll have like some type of external cue, you know, something that maybe it's like, you know, a certain time of day makes you hungry, or, you know, you're walking past a certain area and you smell cookies or something, you know, like there's some type of cue. Then your body will want to go through some type of routine so that it can accomplish something and get some type of reward. So we have this sort of cue, routine, reward cycle that happens consistently, right? And so if we consider that, right, and you know, then that's going to reinforce that cue, because now we're going to start drawing an even greater association, right? Like my favorite example is always to use like Oreos. I think Oreos are a great example because like there's kind of a routine that you go through when you're eating those cookies, right? You know, you twist it, right, and then you lick off the frosting and then you eat it afterwards, right? So like that is like you have a cue, which might be seeing like a box of Oreos. Your brain knows that if it goes through this specific routine, it's going to get a big hit of sugar. It's going to get this big sugary reward, right? So what happens is like when you do get that reward, your brain, you know, your brain loves sugar. You know, like your brain's designed to, you know, it's still a cave person brain at the end of the day. And so like, you know, as a cave person, if you find a readily available source of calories that are packed into a little tiny cookie, that's a great, you know, that would be a great way to survive, you know, if you have been fasting for 48 hours, you know, that's a great, you know, freaking thing to get if you're a cave person. But obviously, like we have unlimited access to Oreos, you know, like we live in a world there where, you know, we have unlimited access to this stuff, which is not so great, right? So, you know, you'll have this cue and then you'll go through this routine. Your brain is addicted to the routine. This is what, you know, we tend to think about. Our brain is really just, you know, it's going through a specific task, and then it's like a dog, right? Like your dog, when you train them to sit, right? You condition them to sit. You're like, sit and you give them a treat, and you sit and give them a treat, right? And then like suddenly they know that if they go through this routine, they'll get like some type of reward, right? And eventually maybe it becomes like a scratch behind the ears or even just like, you know, vocal appraisal. But that the brain is addicted to the routine. This is why our habits are so hard to break sometimes. You know, because the routine that's associated, the movements that are associated with something can sometimes be challenging. So when we look at like how an individual thinks, right, if they are if we're trying to improve how they think, and we're trying to send the message like, hey, you are successful, you can accomplish tasks, and we have someone actually like setting out to do a task, like, hey, we're going to go through this circuit of 20 squats, 15 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, or and 5 burpees, right? And you're going to go through that whole circuit. We're going to do as many of them as we can in 10 minutes, right? And so you start a 10-minute timer, and they're going to go through as many rounds of that as possible. They can take breaks when they need to. We call that an AMRAP, by the way, as many rounds as possible. And they're doing this, and their heart rate's up, and they got to take a little bit of a break at the 7-minute marker or something, but then they get back into it and they keep going through. And let's say they get through like 4 or 5 rounds, right? It's like, great, you did awesome, right? We got through 4 rounds, and then we weren't able to finish all the sit-ups, so we got like 4.5 rounds out, right? And then you bring them in for your next session, and it's like, all right, we're gonna do the same thing, right? And suddenly they get through 5 rounds, and then you bring them in again, they get through 6 rounds, right? That improvement improves psychologically how an individual thinks, because they are accomplishing tasks. If someone says, oh, I'm just not generally good at most things, I fail at most of the things I set out to do. And then it's like, you have evidence on your side of like, no, you don't. Like, I've set out plenty of workouts for you and you've accomplished them all. So it has really positive effects on how we think. This is one of the reasons why we love exercise so much. There's nothing better than setting a goal for yourself and then achieving that goal. That is like candy for your brain, in terms of instant relief. It just has really positive effects. And then there is the social aspect to it. This is a big one for our senior clients. The social aspect of exercise, an individual support system, right? Like, not everybody has a really strong support system, or maybe a lot of people don't even necessarily know how to take advantage of a support system that they might have. But learning how to like communicate and regularly check in with people, is a big deal in terms of our clients' individual support. So that is definitely something that, can be achieved through like exercise, right? Like, you are a relationship in this. God dang it, I'm gonna sneeze. Tried to fight it off. Socially, the support system that your client has, right? You might be building that. You are a part of that social structure, right? Like, if you have a client who is, continually communicating with you and checking in, you are holding them accountable, right? Like, that's a strong thing. And then also, you're there for support, which is obviously huge. You're encouraging, all this. So again, if we look at it, right, we're talking about how exercise has a straight up emotional well-being improvement through creating like positive endorphins and antibodies to stress. We see physical improvements, which means less aches and pains in their overall life. We see psychological improvements in terms of like helping individuals learn how to create more constructive, healthy thoughts. And that's the thing. We want like constructive thoughts, right? Constructive, healthy thoughts. And then social, right? We want an individual support system. We do want like, to be there for our clients and help support them in what they need. So going back to this idea of self-perception and this very oddly arranged PowerPoint that does not follow the chapter properly. Looking at self-perception, we're going to have 2 aspects to this, right? We're going to have two different sides to this. We're going to have our self-efficacy and our self-esteem. These are kind of the things we talked a little bit about already, right? So self-efficacy is the belief or the confidence that someone has in order to accomplish specific tasks that they might set out to achieve, right? So like, if I asked you, hey, do you feel like when you're on a workout routine, like let's say I put you on a workout routine that is designed for you to improve your 1 rep max strength. If that is the overall goal, right, to improve your 1 rep max, do you feel like you can accomplish that in X number of days, right? Do you feel like if you were to go on a strength routine, you generally see improvement? And not everybody's going to feel that way, right? Like sometimes people are definitely going to say, no, I'm just not very athletic. I've always struggled with this kind of thing, right? So that's showing like low efficacy. So we need to do things to help our clients increase their self-efficacy, right? Again, go back to this idea of like an AMRAP. If your client is improving a little bit every single session and they're seeing that and you're recording it and you're writing it down, you're saying like, hey, look, I've got hard data to prove to you that like when you set out to accomplish something, you do and you achieve it, right? That only yields like more development of that self-efficacy, right? This is one of the reasons, guys, why we love fitness assessments so much, because like they are a great way for us to write down hard data and track progress in our clients. So we absolutely want to track stuff like this consistently. And a lot of times it involves like tracking, multiple metrics, right? Maybe it's tracking your client's body weight. That's great. But tracking their body fat percentage, their lean body mass, tracking all of these individual separate numbers have really positive effects, because now you've got a lot of different pieces of data to pull from. So where maybe your client's like, I'm on this weight loss journey and I haven't, dropped a pound in 2 weeks. And it's like, yes, but we've been taking your measurements and your body fat percentage, both of which have gone down. So yes, your body weight has stayed the same, but your body fat percentage, your body composition has changed drastically. Right. And so we can help our clients feel like they are achieving their goals, right? They set out to accomplish something and they are accomplishing it. So that's self-efficacy. And that has a really positive effect on people's overall quality of life. And then there is this self-esteem, right? An individual's feelings of self-worth. So, self-esteem, like I said, it's someone feeling as if they are valuable or that they deserve to be somewhere, that they belong, right? Those are all parts of like self-esteem. And let me tell you from personal experience, I can't, a lot of senior clients, not all, but like definitely not all, but a lot of senior clients is where I see it the most, do not feel like they belong in a gym setting. They don't feel like they belong to the gym, same thing is true of like my, talk about like obese clients. Now, I'll say something that is not necessarily controversial. It's definitely not controversial, but like a lot of trainers love to bash on Planet Fitness. I don't know. It's just a trendy thing. We just live in our industry. We like to bash on a lot of stuff. Like I feel like personal trainers are some of the most highly opinionated. Maybe I'm just more sensitive to it because it's what I'm exposed to. That's probably the case. But personal trainers love to have like hard opinions on things, like, nope, this is how it is. This is what I believe. And everything else is stupid, And I feel like a lot of people will like bash on Planet Fitness because like, they do some things that are a little silly. They do like, was it Pizza Mondays or Pizza Fridays or something like that? That's a little goofy, And then they have like the lunk alarm thing, that alarm that goes off if you're too loud or dropping your weights and stuff, But here's the thing: they do that because Planet Fitness is an incredibly inviting experience. It is meant to, be a haven for people who might not feel like they necessarily belong in a traditional gym setting. And I gotta say, I think that's awesome. Now, I probably wouldn't have a membership to a place like Planet Fitness because they tend to focus, you can see, like it's very machine-based, which is a great introductory thing. It's not intimidating for individuals. You'll notice that like there's no, I don't think they have even a traditional bench press. Is that a regular squat rack? No, yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, there's no way. They'll have like Smith machines and stuff like that, but you'll very rarely see free weights and stuff. Yeah, the colors, the purple and yellow, right? It looks like the entire like Lakers team like went in there and threw up. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people will like trainers will bash on LA Fitness, and I hate that mentality. It drives me crazy. You know, if like, why would you knock something that is approachable for a beginner, you know? Don't get me wrong, like I would love it if they had free weights. I think free weights are the best way to work out, you know? And they have like dumbbells and benches and stuff, but they don't have like barbells or things like that, which I think are an absolute staple in the world of lifting. Make no mistake about it. I think those are the best exercises out there. But right, that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, you know, it's what's perfect for everyone, you know. At least when they start, they might have low self-esteem, they might not feel like they belong in a traditional gym setting, and that sucks that people feel that way, you know. I wish no one felt that way ever, because the gym is my favorite place, you know. It's where, you know, it's a playground for adults, you know. It's literally what it is. And so we need to build up our individuals like self-esteem, so continually reinforcing the fact that like our client belongs, and that like we are there for them, because we want to see them succeed, we want to see them accomplish things. That is going to help build up our clients' self-esteem, and that is definitely something we put a strong emphasis on. So feelings of self-worth that can sometimes be associated with body image, like, you know, being older. Age related to the body are sort of the ones that have like the most negative impacts, right? If a client, just an older client, feels like they have aches and pains, they don't feel like they move enough, you know. So they will often, like I said, feel discomfort in a traditional gym setting. And this is true of your obese clients too, by the way. I'd say obese clients probably are the ones that I have noticed are the most sensitive to this. But I've definitely seen it in my senior clients, and I've seen it in regular individuals. I had a client who was an actress, like a very successful, had been on a soap opera for decades, you know, like very nice, funny, attractive, you know, successful person. And she had major anxiety when it came to being on the gym floor. And she was uncomfortable simply walking onto the gym floor, because she felt like she was going to be judged. She didn't feel like she was very strong. And she was a thin gal. For sure. She had not really dipped a toe into the strength training world. So her level of strength was pretty low, and she felt very judged by everyone around her. So we would work out in this kind of quiet corner of the gym where we'd sort of build things. She was not super comfortable being on the actual gym floor. So, you know, it's not always just not just your seniors, not just your obese clients. You know, this is something that is a lesson that can apply to all of our clients. We want to be, you know, supportive, and you know, we want to champion our clients' successes. So the biggest effectors of emotional well-being, like I said, emotionally our clients can experience, you know, very, very dramatic or very, you know, negative impacts emotionally. Some of these things can be dramatic life changes. Senior clients, one thing, you know, a loss of a loved one can obviously be a very dramatic life change that can have very intense emotional responses, right? But you know, and that's one where really we're just trying to be supportive, you know, like that's really like the only thing you can do in that scenario. However, one of the other things that is honestly like leads to a lot of like psychological turmoil is we will see the feelings of loss that are the result of retirement. So, you know, here's the thing, right? Like we think of like, you know, retirement is kind of like the goal sometimes, right? Like we're excited to get to retirement, right? But a lot of times, like, you know, people have sunk their purpose, their feelings of self-worth and value into their career. And so when they retire, they might have like a loss of that feeling. They might have like this loss of purpose. And so that's another thing that like we should be aware of, that we can, you know, give our clients like a new sense of purpose, right? Where it's like, hey, like, you know, well, let's see if we can set out some fitness goals and, you know, accomplish them. It's going to take weeks of consistent effort, you know. That's something new that they can kind of focus on. That's really, really fun for our senior clients. You know, because that's gonna, all that other stuff is going to lead to, you know, depression, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. I know, I don't know if you guys are like me though. Whenever I've, and this is true, by the way, I've definitely experienced this with my senior clients. So, this text has definitely got some weight behind it. But I'll tell you from personal, like me personally, I'm like, I can't wait to retire. I want to retire by the time I'm 40. I mean, I'll never stop working. Like I'm definitely going to train clients kind of forever and be involved in like the fitness industry. But in terms of like actively working like 8 hours a day, like I want that done by the time I'm 40, I want to work on my terms and having a, positive impact in other ways. There's if you guys want, if you guys want to go down a friggin' rabbit hole, check out the they call it the FIRE community. Habitual exercise, this is another one, right? We do know that it has positive benefits to all of these things that we're talking about, right? It can reduce stress, it can improve mood, and it can decrease any of those psychological symptoms associated with any of these negative impacts like we've talked about, right? So our jobs, our priorities, right, if we're looking at this, is to, create or facilitate rather, because we're not necessarily like, I mean, it says create here, but like, we're not necessarily just creating these scenarios for our clients, right? Like we're simply facilitating them so that they can sort of take those steps, right? But the first thing we do need to sort of develop in our clients is we need to develop a strong sense of rapport. And so when I say like rapport, I know you guys are familiar with this term, but this is one that's in your regular textbook. This is a very big, important term. It's an individual's feelings of trust towards another individual, right? So if you have good, strong rapport with your client, they're going to trust you. They're going to see you as an expert, and they are going to listen to the things that you tell them, and they're going to feel supported by you, right? These are all very, very positive things. So we want to have these individual feelings of trust, or we want to have rapport with our clients. Does our client feel safe during their sessions, right? Are you paying attention to them? Do they feel comfortable, right? Like, are you, making sure that like you are doing everything in your power to professionally, facilitate comfort for them? And do they trust you? Do they feel like they can, do exercises that are outside of their comfort zone? Do they feel like if they step outside that comfort zone, they're going to be supported, right? So how the heck do you develop rapport? Well, this is where, we basically break it down into sort of four big steps here, right? So the first thing is actually pretty simple. It's just ask questions and listen. Ask your clients specifically what it is, what they want to achieve, right? That's a big deal. What's important to them, right? Like if you've got a client who says like, hey, I want to have more energy so I can have, so I can be around and, play with my grandkids or something, right? If that's what your client tells you, and then the whole time you're working with them, you're like, all right, we're going for that strength game. We're going to lose some muscle, we're going to lose some body weight and stuff like that. And it's like, they're maybe not motivated by weight loss like a lot of our clients are. They might be instead motivated by how they feel. So that's very different. So you want to make sure that you're listening to your clients so that it shows them that you are trying to build that rapport with them. And then what are their worries? Like, what is it that they're anxious about, right? Break that down for your clients as well so that you can address those things, right? Listen to your clients when they tell you like the types of things that make them nervous, or the type of things, that they are worried about. And listen to what obstacles they are nervous to overcome. So looking at like specifically the types of obstacles that they might be worried about, those things are things like fear of injury, intolerance in the gym. Like, as I said, like, maybe they feel like they don't belong, right? All of those things are a big deal. So we want to make sure that we are definitely listening to our clients so that we can like address them. And this is where we have to practice the skill of active listening, right? And this, guys, I cannot put enough emphasis on this. This is in every mod we talk about active listening in some capacity. It's literally in every section. And it's not enough. Active listening is such a really big, freaking important skill. Make eye contact with your clients. Don't fidget, don't play with your phone, don't look down regularly, don't cross off your body language, right? Stay open. All of these things are a big part of like actively listening to your clients. And ask questions. That's one of the best ways to display to someone that you are listening to them, is asking them questions. So if someone said, something, and then you were like, oh, so what you're saying is, and then you repeat that back to them, but in like a slightly different way, that is a great sign that you are listening, like you're hearing them. So we love active listening. But it's a skill. Some people are going to be naturally better at it than others. But trust me, it is definitely something you want to develop. We also want to address any barriers and concerns that our clients might have. So once we are listening to our clients, the next thing that's going to help us build rapport with our client is addressing any of the things that they are majorly concerned about, right? So if they have a fear of injury, we are going to address and say, well, my job is to be here and pay attention. We're going to do things that are in a safe range of motion, and we're going to keep you, in an area. We're going to keep you moving in a way that is not only going to make you safer, but it's also going to like promote like strength, which is going to reduce your risk of injury outside the gym. Like my job is to improve your balance. And I know balance is something that like a client doesn't put as much emphasis on, man, yesterday I was doing, I did like a total body routine that was very, stabilization based, because this is kind of an off week for me. And so, we were watching those Joel Seedman Instagram things. I stole some of the exercises off of his feed, and was doing them yesterday. And it's crazy. Like the bottom of my foot was so sore at the end of it, right? Because it's just doing all this gripping action and developing balance. That's great. That reduces our risk of injury. Address the fear of intolerance, right? Fear of not belonging in the gym. And just explain to your clients, even like, hey, like all these people are here for the same reason. This is a place for people to better themselves, and you're a part of that community. As long as you're here to better yourself, you're going to be accepted. Not to mention everybody's focused on themselves. Nobody's paying attention. It's like that scene out of Jurassic Park where it's like, Dotson, we got Dotson here. See, nobody cares. Then we are going to see like obviously like discomfort in the gym, right? We will see like just an overall like discomfort in health clubs, which is kind of associated with that fear of intolerance, or lack of time. This freaking objection. Again, we'll hear people say it's like, oh, I'm just worried, I'm busy, I don't know if I have time to exercise. And it's so funny to me because I'm just like, I have the exact opposite opinion. I'm just like, how do you not have time to exercise? Like when you don't exercise regularly, you have more aches and pains. You can't move the way you're supposed to. Everything in life takes longer. Like, but that's hard for some people to see, like, it was hard for me to see, like, I didn't make time for years. I didn't make time for financial like stewardship, like for years I didn't take time to be cautious about how I was spending money and things like that. And years and years of that junk, and now it's something that I'm kind of playing catch up on, and it's taking me way more time now than it did if I had started when I was younger, So address that barrier, right? Like if someone says like, oh, I just don't know if I have time to exercise regularly. It's like, well, you are either going to make time now, or you are going to be forced to make time later, when you have to be off your feet for 6 months when you go in for a knee surgery or something, Actually, knee surgery is a bad example. That wouldn't happen if you have to go in for hip surgery. Next step, praise your client continually, right? Continually praise your client's successes, highlight those freaking things, like high fives, man. It's a big deal for our clients. This is, like I said, this is cheesy as heck, but I do not let my clients get away with doing burpees where they just raise their arms up overhead. I want the high five at the top of every burpee, always. Because that is, that's the the self 5. I'm awesome, right? Like, give it up for yourself. That's a big freaking deal. Praise your clients towards their successes, continually say like, hey, do you realize we've been working out for 4 weeks and you've already lost blah, blah, blah pounds, or you've built we started with 5 pounds on these plates and now we're down to 15. That's a huge improvement, right? This is why we love positive reinforcement as a tool. And we're not going to go through the different types of conditioning in this course or anything, but positive reinforcement, where someone does a targeted behavior and then you reinforce that targeted behavior by giving them praise or a positive reward of some type, so that then their brain starts drawing an association between this action and this reward, right? You want to know one of the best things you guys can do for yourself? Just mentally and physically. Try next time you're done with your workout, take just a second to like sit there, turn around, look at the gym floor, and just give yourself a little mental pat on the back and just say like, I kicked some butt today, take a second to say that to yourself and like actually do it as a bit, do it as a like where you, yeah, like it's cheesy as heck, trust me, but it will literally reinforce your habit of going to the gym more frequently because your brain will make positive endorphins in response, and it will draw an association to your setting and the activities that you've been performing over the last however long. It will draw an association between those things with exercise. If you got a client who's having a hard time like exercising, having like a little routine at the end of a session where you are praising them and developing positive reinforcement, it's a great way to reinforce our habits, right? Give yourself and give your clients a reward for this physical activity, and they're going to start drawing an association because your brain's going to want the reward, and it can only get it if you do like a specific action. So then it starts to say, well, I love that action because that action means rewards, and then communicate the benefits to your clients as well. Help your clients recognize the most powerful predictors of health, right? So this is again, like continually like reinforcing, why they are here, what positive benefits they are getting out of exercising. By reinforcing those things and having that conversation with your clients, it can help them realize those positive effects, and they're just going to continue drawing those positive associations that we're talking about. So again, first thing, always make sure if you're trying to develop like a good relationship with your client, ask and listen to them intently. Ask them lots of questions and listen to those questions actively. Address any barriers that they have. If you are continually, if they say they are worried about something and you give them a solution for that thing and you say, well, this is how we're going to address that, that's going to have a really positive effect. That person's going to have a lot of trust in you. Praise them for any of their successes. That's only going to help reinforce your relationship with them, and then communicate the benefits of like what it is they did. It's like, hey, I know that was rough today. We absolutely liquidized your legs. You got a freaking tough workout today, but you crushed it. You did great. You got through the whole thing. That was the hardest workout you and I have done yet, and yet you stomped it and accomplished it. And you're going to be sore tomorrow, right? Communicate the benefits. You're going to be sore tomorrow, but that is only going to, further indicate that you are making progress, right? You're getting stronger consistently. You're able to push yourself harder and harder and harder. You're communicating the benefits of exercise, right? Or even saying just like, and this is going to keep you upright for years and years and years to come. So that is sort of those are the best ways to kind of build rapport in our clients. Do you guys have any questions so far? It's been pretty quiet today. Any questions or comments?
No.
All right. So last little thing we're going to look at here, we're going to look at like how to help individuals achieve or gain personal achievement. So this is a little bit of a different part of the conversation. Like the last part was like how to start building a relationship with your client, right? Like build that relationship, ask them questions, build up their belief, communicate the benefits, all those things that builds trust and rapport in your client. Now, what if we are coaching our client? What are the big things that we kind of need to focus on? So there's kind of 5 sort of steps or 5 aspects to this that are important for personal achievement. The first one is going to be vision. You do want to help your clients accurately define or clarify like what it is they are trying to achieve. Whoa. Oh, hold on. So for instance, if you've got a client who, signs up for a gym membership, they sign up for personal training, and, they come into the gym and they're like, it's like, what are you here for? And they're like, well, I'm, my doctor says I need to lose weight. And so, that's what I'm here to do. And it's like, oh, okay, great. So why is that so important to you, right? Like why, like what's the most important part of like, if if you're doing this, like what is actually motivating you to get your butt to the gym every single day, right? And there's like, well, I mean, like, yeah, my doctor told me to, but like, I want to have enough energy, to kind of get through the day. I'm just tired of feeling tired, right? And it's like, okay, so you're trying to build up your endurance. You're trying to build up like your overall like strength and endurance in just life in general, right? That's clear. That's getting to the actual heart of the issue, I had a client, named Jerry who only like literally the reason he came and signed up for the gym was like, what brings you here? And he was like, my wife made me get personal training. And I was like, all right, like what are you excited about though? He's like, I'm not. It's like he was one of my favorite clients actually, because he was a great conversationalist. He actually worked quite hard during his sets and stuff, but he was just a very like kind of in a very funny way, oddly enough, he's just a kind of a negative dude, which normally you would think is like a real drawback, but it was so funny. Like he had a real good sense of humor about it. And so, what eventually became like a motivating factor as mostly as a joke, but I mean, I think there was, a little bit of truth there. As I was like, hey, Jerry, you give me this set and I'll get off your back, like, and I'll tell your wife that you killed it today. You did great, but I gotta be honest, man. So you gotta give me the effort here. I'm gonna tattle on you. And he'd be like, oh man. And it was so funny. It was a weird, funny dynamic, totally unique compared to, some of my other sessions and stuff. And it was great. It was a really, kind of a funny thing. So vision, help your clients clarify what it is they really want. Get to the heart of the issues, Then once you've got that, once we've got like a vision of things, let's come up with a strategy to achieve that vision, right? Like I told you guys, I want to retire by 40, right? I got to have a strategy in place if I'm going to do that. I can't just like let it come to me or passively happen, right? That strategy involves, investing in certain areas and trying to like increase income. So how do we turn, these lofty vision, how do we turn this lofty ambition, this vision into like specific actions or strategies that we can take, right? So set specific goals for your clients and come up with action plans. So when we looked at SOAP notes, I think I said this a couple of times, but like SOAP notes are honestly, guys, they're not something you're going to see in the realm of personal training that often. They're generally more associated with like physical therapy and things like that. That's usually, so if you end up in a place like that, great. Like you'll be familiar with SOAP notes. But generally, it's not that common in the regular personal training world. But I love doing that activity. I love doing SOAP notes as an activity because the P part of the SOAP note, the plan part, is a great way. You just have a very set way to set up an action plan. You're like, all right, what's my plan? Flexibility, what's my plan? for cardio? What's my plan for strength training? What's my plan for nutrition? You kind of address these 4 things, very systematic. And so you're like, here's what I want to do in each of these categories. So you can say like, I want to adjust strength by doing, an upper body day and a lower body day, or I want to do a bro split, right? Like, lots of different options there. So that's going to be, a big one, right? Like coming up with this strategy, right? Specific strategies always way more effective than general ones, right? Like, I'm gonna go to the gym every day. That's not going to cut it. What are you going to do in the gym? I want to hear the specifics, right? And then helping your client develop a combination of short-term goals and long-term goals are always really helpful as well. We love short-term goals because they provide feedback as to whether you are really working your way down the road. And we love long-term goals because that's this big carrot on the end of the stick, it's this big, pie at the end of a road. It's the big thing that you're trying to achieve in the long term, right? So like, again, this is a financial goal, but like, I want to retire by the time I'm 40, right? So that is my long-term goal. I've got 7 years to figure out how to do that. It's not that long a term. We're getting there. But my short-term goals, right, is like at the end of this year, right? I want to buy like my first house before this year is over. That's a big deal for me. We also want to, develop belief in our clients, right? Help our clients develop belief that they are going to achieve those. So once we have a strategy, we need to build up our clients' belief that they are going to achieve that, right? This is going to happen by developing this internal locus of control that I talked about the other day. And this is in your text, which, you got to read about this. This is like one of my all-time like favorite just concepts to talk about, the internal locus of control, which is there's sort of 2 places, right? It's where your belief of control is sort of located. Like, do you believe that it's like within you, or do you believe that it's outside of you? Do you believe that you are controlled by destiny? That's an external locus of control, right? Like the world is out to get you, or do you believe that like, nope, I want to achieve something, so then I set out to do it, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to have positive effects here, 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 and here, right? That's an internal locus of control. These are different, right? They're very different for each other. External locus is the kind of people who are just like, oh, I'm so unlucky. We don't want to have that type of mentality, right? We want to say like, hey, I may have been dealt a bad hand here with my osteoporosis, but I'm going to exercise regularly, and I know that regular exercise has positive effects on bone density. Therefore, when I regularly exercise, I'm going to fix my bone density, right? That's an internal locus of control, right? It's not that like, you're out there catching a disease, right? So that's the belief part of things, right? You're going to do this by taking baby steps, build your client up progressively. This is one of the reasons why the OPT model is, wow, that is not how you type that. That's why the OPT model is a staircase, right? It's a staircase because you build a foundation and you work your way up it. Visualize and mental practice with your clients. Encourage your clients to do a little bit of visualization and, talk about like where they might see themselves. That can help improve their confidence, right? Continually reinforcing. I don't know if anybody in here uses like vision boards, but that's a very helpful tool. And then draw on successes, like say, like, remind your client, like, hey, remember when you thought you couldn't do like 15 full body weight squats, but now I've got you doing like 20 full body weight squats while you're holding a 20-pound dumbbell, right? That's a pretty big deal. You've seen massive improvements, right? So building on that with your clients is a big deal. Persistence is another one, right? The science of helping your clients sort of move forward and rebound from any setbacks that they happen to deal with. Here's the thing: setbacks are going to happen. On the journey to success, setbacks are definitely going to be a thing. But learning how to build up resilience to those setbacks is what's going to be very helpful for you. So encouraging your client to exercise every day, even if it's like, even if it's like doing 1 set rather than like 3, right? If it's like, if they find they don't have time to get to the gym. This is why, I've had clients for years text me and say like, hey, I just woke up, can we cancel? And I'll say, get down here. and they'll say like, as fast as you can. It's like, well, if I leave now, I'm only going to get there with like 10 minutes left. And it's like, well, 10 minutes reinforces the habit. Let's get you on the treadmill for 10 minutes, burn a couple calories, that sounds like a big, that sounds like, it's not going to have a very positive effect. But and honestly, physically, it's not. It's not going to have a huge positive effect calorically or body composition wise, but it will preserve the routine. And that's half the battle sometimes, just turning these things into habit, right? So helping your clients build that up. Reward their successes. That's going to build persistence, because again, the more they are rewarded, the more likely they are to kind of forgive failure. Facilitate networks, develop like a social network. Remember, we talked about that idea of like psychosocial well-being, right? You are already a little bit of a network for your client, but get them in touch with some of your other clients. I used to do like for any of my clients that had Fitbits, I would get them all like looped up into what you can create custom groups, and we'd put them in a group and everybody would compete for who could get the most steps. These people didn't even like cross paths that often. But it was like a fun thing. And they were like, oh, Stan, he's killing it today. God, I got to pick up my steps, right? Because they would get a little competitive about it. That's awesome. That builds persistence. It gives you something fun to sort of focus on and overcome. And then keep varying up your routine, guys. One of the things that, sort of diminishes persistence is boredom. So do not make your routines boring. You should be changing it up, not only for the sake that for the fact that it also builds up the body in different ways, but you also want to make sure that you are building things up, because, boredom is every 4 to 6 weeks, change up your routine. It's going to keep your client motivated. It gives them something new to focus on, even me, I break down pretty much all my routines into sort of 4-week blocks. And I get really motivated by whatever it is I'm working on for that, that month, that 4-week period. Lastly, we're going to focus on learning, helping our clients learn how to make their own course corrections. One of the best ways you can do this, honestly, is self-monitoring. So teach get your clients to use a recording device, training logs. I know I harp on this all the time, guys. I talk about this constantly, but get a training log. Write down your sets and reps. Look, on Amazon, there is literally a workout journal. It's like $7. Get one of these freaking things. They are so helpful. It's very simple. You literally, it's got your sets. That's not what I want. Where's the main? Oh, it's got your sets, it's got your reps, and what you did for every one of them. It goes up to 6 sets. It's great. This person did, and I love this. Look how they did 10 reps for set 1, 2, 3, and then they were only able to get 9 reps on that 4th set because they were maybe a little tired. That's great, because next time they come in, they can look for an improvement there, right? So they can look to see if that gets a little bit better. Sorry, I was like, how does this work out? So definitely utilizing self-monitoring. Food journals is another big one, or food tracking in an app was a big one. Continually, you've got your goals written down. Like I said, when it comes to belief, that vision board, super helpful. And whenever you achieve those goals, cross them off, right? Self-monitoring. It's going to help your client, track their progress and their successes. So there's a lot of general information for really any type of client. All of this applies to all of our clients. This is not just a senior thing. But in particular, we do need to be aware of the fact that seniors are going to have different psychological and emotional challenges as we get older. These are just changes in our brains and in our personality. So we need to be aware of those things. Helping our clients understand the factors that are within their control that they can facilitate change is going to help them stay more motivated. Learning to develop rapport and communication with our client is going to help improve their overall quality of life. So communicating with our client and developing that rapport is going to give them greater trust in you. They are more likely to continue training with you and having positive benefits. And then, these are sort of our last 5 steps for how to, in terms of personal achievement, always come up with a vision first. Come up with like what it is, an overall goal, then come up with a strategy to meet that goal, reinforce your belief in that strategy that it's going to, achieve success. Always maintain persistence when there are setbacks. Weight is going to fluctuate every single day. And then, focus on learning, continually track and monitor progress. Very, very big deal. And that is what we've got for today, guys. Any questions so far? Questions, comments, concerns? How y'all feeling?
Good.
Nothing? All right, guys. We'll go ahead and kill the recording. I'll see you guys tomorrow.